Hello, and welcome back to the Guns on Pegs podcast. Somehow we have arrived at the final episode of Series 4. I'm not quite sure how that's happened. But anyway, how's it going, Chris? Have you recovered from your man flu?
I have, George. Just because of the sip of the drink I've poured myself, that's completely wiped it out.
I can hear it in your voice.
Honestly, it nearly knocked me for 6 after my first sip. Anyway, we'll come on to that in a minute. But anyway, yeah, all good.
So we've done another series, Chris.
I know. It's weird, isn't it? I kind of feel like because working life has sort of changed for everyone, we now work like flexibly, sometimes in the office, sometimes home. I still feel like we're sort of on the end of COVID, and COVID I kind of talk about as that thing that just started a little bit ago. You know, it's not fully finished, and we've done 4 series in that time. It's like the whole thing's a bit, I don't know, I've lost track of time a little bit over the last couple of years.
It is all a bit surreal, but I mean, we've done a couple of mini episodes as well, but this is the 40th sort of proper episode.
Well, that must mean we've got a planning session coming up again.
You've read my mind. Not only have we got to plan a new series, which we've already started talking about, of course, because we're very well organised.
Have we? I don't remember that bit.
But also, we've got our half century coming up.
Oh, I feel like you're teeing us up for a party. I like these conversations.
Well, I mean, we've got to think about something, haven't we? I mean, look, let's throw it out to people. I mean, we're obviously doing something at the Game Fair again this year, I think. I haven't decided exactly what, but what do people think is a good idea for a 50th episode?
That I like. That's a good shout. But thinking about it and just looking at where we're at the moment, we're at the end of April. Another 10 episodes with a little bit of a gap in between series. We're basically going to be at the Game Fair. It's going to be about that time, you know.
Yeah, well, we'd look at some calendars and work something out. But yeah, I'd definitely like to get some ideas from people.
Yeah, good. Good.
But let's not get ahead of ourselves. We've got to do this series first. And We're finishing off with a big guest for this series, aren't we, Chris? Would you like to tell us who we've got with us?
A very well-known guest today. Very well-known. So he's well-known on both international clay shooting circuit, but also the sort of UK game shooting world. He's regarded actually as one of the best shots in the country. And he's even managed to gain this status with one eye after having an accident playing football when he was aged 11. So quite unbelievable. He's got 25,000 subscribers to his YouTube channel, where his videos have had over 6.3 million views. He's very much a Yorkshireman, so hopefully he's ready for some jokes with us Southern fairies. A very warm welcome to Dave Carrie.
Thank you, boys. And it's very, very nice to be with you.
Dave, it's great for you to join us. It's really exciting.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, Dave.
I'd just like to correct you as well, though, Chris, on when I lost my eye, it wasn't through football. I used to be a footballer, but it was through, I got shot in the eye, actually.
Okay, I literally read that off your website, so I read it completely wrong. Gosh, I'm sorry.
I was good. I was a good little footballer at the time, but unfortunately, a sniper shot me with a 2.2 air rifle.
What?
While we were playing football on the...
while you were playing football. Okay, that's why I misread it.
Yeah, while we were actually playing football.
My God, that's awful. Well, I mean, it's awful either way, but I mean, even more awful.
He whacked one or two of us in up the arse at once or twice. So we all run behind the sort of the dustbin hole, what we call where they kept the bins. Then we all got hidden behind there, and I poked my head around the corner and got the bullet in the eyeball.
Oh my God!
And that's how I lost my eye. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and I nearly died through it as well. Really.
Well, I'm not surprised. Crikey.
I'm sorry. I had no idea. That's traumatic.
Surprising how powerful a little, even them days, the little break barrel 2.2 air rifle.
The little spring-loaded job.
Yeah, the little spring-loaded one. I mean, the tremendously powerful things now.
Gosh.
There's a lesson for everybody listening, though. Don't point your gun at people.
Yeah, but
that's the main thing to when you're bringing kids into shooting is you don't. I mean, we were taught never to point a bloody stick at anybody, never mind a gun, but obviously don't point anything at people's faces.
Yeah.
Well, the point of me kind of adding it in is it doesn't seem to have held you back much. I mean,
No, but I was very late in finding shooting. Of course, I come from a very poor mining background, and we didn't know anything about clay pigeon shooting or game shooting. We were just sort of lads, 7, 8 year old. As soon as school time finished, we used to be out playing games or bird nesting or whatever. Whatever took our fancy, really. We weren't allowed in the house till it got dark, sort of thing. Them days. I mean, there were no TV, and I'm knocking on a bit now. I'm nearly 65 now, so you can understand where I'm coming from. The old halcyon days, when you could wander anywhere you wanted, then only thing you got to worry about then were getting shot by the farmers when you were crawling across the fields.
But Dave, I wanted to ask you, it's the end of April now. So we're kind of halfway between two shooting seasons. I mean, I know I feel it, and I don't actually get to shoot all that much. But do you find that time's starting to drag a little bit as we get further and further away from one season, and the other one doesn't quite seem to be in sight yet?
No, I think as soon as February comes round, it's surprising how quick the season comes back on. Because I'm speaking to gamekeepers and shooting lads every week, really. And they're sort of, we're just getting eggs, we're just cleaning our eggs off now, and then 2 or 3 weeks later they're in the hatchery, they're hatching chicks off, and before you know it, it's September or August, ready for grouse. Unfortunately, this year I don't think there might not be a partridge season. It might be in September out.
I mean, normally we talk about, are we going to see many grouse? I mean, this year it's, are we going to see many grouse? Can we see many partridges? And has anyone got any pheasants? I mean, it's bleak, isn't it?
I think that it's looking a bit grim on the partridge supply, but there's still time for that to materialise. We've got a sort of a month where things can change very drastically, as it always does in the shooting season.
Yeah, I mean, so our newsletter we sent out this week, George and Digby, one of the lads in the office, wrote a really good article giving the facts on the situation, because there's been a lot of talk about it and quite a few Chinese whispers, and people don't quite know fully what the situation is yet. And as you say, there is still time, but from a partridge point of view, certainly for shoots wanting early September partridge days, it feels like the horse has bolted on that one for the vast majority.
Yeah, I agree with you there, Chris. I think if we're going to be shooting partridge at all, it's probably be late September time, October time.
Yeah, and that's if things change quickly, and it doesn't look like that's the case either. So we've just sort of been advising people, just you need to be aware of this, chat to shoots, because the other thing that is slightly concerning is it doesn't seem like it feels like some of the game farms aren't necessarily being totally honest with shoots as well about what they might actually receive. So that's causing a lot of miscommunication as well. So it's tricky out there. I feel for everyone. Well, we're all caught up in it, but I feel for everyone who's properly on the line.
In some respects, I do feel very sorry for a lot of shoots that obviously won't get the stock that they require. But where are we? Why are we in this position? This is Great Britain is the biggest game shooting arena in the world, yet we rely on other countries to breed our game birds.
Yeah,
it's so stupid. And there's something like bird flu happens in France or some country that produces a lot of game birds for our own game shooting scenario, and we've cut our own throat. We just do not grow enough birds on to supply ourselves, and it's stupid, really. We found it out too long, and I think probably this will be it'll be a wake-up call, really, for a lot of people to start going back to the old ways and, actually doing some breeding themselves.
Yeah, I definitely think it's a really interesting... I feel like in any situation like this, we've got to ask ourselves, how can we find a positive out of this situation, as in at least an opportunity and a way of turning it around, of doing things different in the future? I think that's always a really healthy conversation to have. And what you were just saying there is an interesting one. I think, from my little understanding of it, I think the reason that a lot of most of the eggs and stuff come from France is just simply because of the climate, and it's just much better rearing conditions, so they get greater returns. And from a business point of view, it's very difficult to make it pay as a game farmer at that level over here. And that's why it's kind of like the sort of champagne argument as well. The climate just doesn't quite lend itself, and you just need to be that much further south. But I would have thought the south of England is probably up there with the Loire Valley in France now, to be able to do that.
They've bred pheasants and partridge the old ways, going back 30 or 40 years ago. Bred them for years in vast numbers. I mean, some of the big old estates, they used to shoot 3,000 or 4,000 bird days, the Edwardian days. So, and these were all bred under banties, under hens. And we're talking now, 40 years later, we can't supply our own industry. It's like, we're making the rifles and waiting for Russia to supply the bullets. It's that scenario, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, on that note,
right. Well, yes. So, Chris, do you want to start off? What's that you're drinking?
So the drink that cleared my cold in one fell sip is I found a gin on the shelves of a niche retailer nearby, and it's called Son of a Gun. So I thought very
nice.
Yeah, you see what I've done there. The thing is, though, George, when I found it, I didn't spot that it's 47.4%. So I poured myself a nice healthy measure. And it's noticeably stronger than my normal gin and tonic.
Oh, this is going to be fun. Dave, you have not got a drink, I think.
Well, I've actually got a drink of tea, but obviously you know why I've got a drink of tea, because I'm on painkillers, and they are very powerful painkillers. So I cannot drink any alcohol whatsoever. But I can tell you a good alcohol tale.
Oh yes, please.
I can remember. It must be 8-9 years ago now. Me and Christine got invited with the Canadian team to go and shoot at brigands, and these chaps are very, very wealthy chaps. Billionaires, in fact. We arrive at Betwisall. We've had a lovely meal, and then the drinks come out. And one of the Canadian team, Hank, who was an oil magnate, he said to me, "Do you like whiskey, Dave?" I said, "Well, yeah. I mean, I was used to supping a bit of Belgian, which is £2.50 a bottle from the local supermarket." Yeah, I said, "Yeah, I do. I love it. Yeah." And he said, "Well, try this." He said, "It's out of my wine cellar. There's only 8 bottles of these." Anyway, tasted it, then, "Oh, that's nice." He said, "It's £10,000 a bottle, that, Dave."
Jesus Christ.
It just tasted like bells to me.
That's not what you should say at that point.
Anyway, cut a long story short, these they've all had a good drink of wine and everything. The evening's gone on then, and everybody's gone to bed, sort of thing, apart from me and Christine. We're the last ones up. And I saw this bottle of whiskey. I said, "Christine," I said, "half a bottle of whiskey there." I said, "Put that bottle in your bag." I said, "We'll put it on internet tomorrow." That I said, £4,000 in that bottle.
Did you get it home?
We did, yeah. He gave it me anyway.
Oh, good lad. You've got to have a lot of money to forget your £4,000 dregs of whiskey in the morning, haven't you?
Since I had a stroke 3 or 4 years ago, and I think it's affected my taste buds anyway, I used to love fish and chips, but I don't like them now. So.
Oh, shocker. Well, being a proper Yorkshireman, I thought you were going to show us Southern Fairies up with like a sort of glass of red diesel or something like that,
Well, I've never been a pub man. If I do have a drink, I mean to get drunk. When we've had a hard week's work, we used to have a really good drink and do half a bottle of whiskey in. But then days are gone now. I'm talking 20 or 30 years ago when I could drink a little bit.
I mean, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, does it?
All my kids were brought up like that, you see. They were brought up like wild ponies.
Well, we know because Rachel used the exact same phrase when she was on the podcast with us. Yeah. I drink to get drunk.
Yeah, well, she's telling the truth. I mean, all my kids were brought up in the scrapyard scenario. I mean, we lived on the yards. I still do live on one of my yards anyway. We live in comfort, but that's how we've been brought up, and that's how we've lived. And all my kids have been brought up to work, and they're all good at getting their own living. They're very, very good at what they do. It's a shame that kids aren't brought up the same way as I speak.
George, What's that you're drinking?
Well, so last episode I was set a challenge, and the challenge was to bring along a whiskey that wasn't from Scotland. We wanted exotic. So I've got a Welsh whiskey. It's Penderyn, a single malt Welsh whiskey, Madeira finish. It's got Welsh gold written on the side of the bottle. It's very nice, actually. I mean, it's not got much colour to it at all, but it's absolutely delicious, and it probably tastes a lot like Bell's.
You're nothing wrong with Bells. Where do you get that from?
Just from the supermarket, Dave. But it's very nice indeed. So I think I'm just dipping my toe in the water of exotic whiskies. I've gone from Scotland to Wales, and we'll see where we go next.
I don't think Wales has ever been referred to as exotic, has it?
Not really.
Well, look, well done, George, for achieving the challenge.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a cop-out, wasn't it? But there wasn't anything on the shelf at Waitrose that really caught my eye from anywhere else. So I think there's a very smart whiskey shop just down the road from here, so I'm going to have to pay a visit for the next series and find something a bit more interesting.
Hey, while we've all got a drink, lads, even though mine's only a cup of tea, can we raise a glass to George Digweed for winning his 27th world title in America, among some of the strongest shooters in the world again, at the senior age that he is now. It's absolutely amazing.
Absolutely. Great shout. I was just messaging Paul James from Gameball, who obviously you know very well. He was out there. Hell of an achievement, isn't it?
Absolutely unreal.
He continues to do it.
Well, George is the best shot the world will ever see. I'll say this sincerely, that nobody will live long enough to achieve what he's achieved.
It is genuinely amazing.
I feel very privileged. George and I are going for dinner for two next week at a little restaurant in Tenterden. So, fresh off the back of his win, I'll be fanboying him and asking him about his performance.
Well, yes. So anyway, here's to George.
Here's to George. Yeah, George.
Right. So the next section, Dave, is where we ask our listeners to send in their shooting dilemmas and questions and quandaries, and we do our level best to offer some helpful advice. Our hit rate on that isn't particularly strong, but we'll see how we get on with this one. We always make our correspondents anonymous, so this is somebody I've decided to refer to as Bartleby, and he's got a question that's sort of suitable for the time of year. He writes, I wonder what your thoughts might be on what to wear on a simulated game day. I recently went on a day where there was a person wearing a skeet vest and then others wearing shuffles. There was also a person in breeks and shooting socks. I know that sim days are becoming more and more of a thing outside the shooting season, but there's still a grey area on the etiquette of what to wear. I understand that you need pockets to be able to load, but I wonder what your thoughts are on this.
Good question.
Short and sweet as well.
Yeah, but it actually needs discussing.
Yeah.
I think it does. What do you wear on a sim day? Dave, what do you wear?
Well, I do a lot of sim days, and the first thing that I look for is comfort, of course, but smart, casual wear. Obviously, if you're loading for yourself, then you've got to have a ski vest is very applicable. But you could wear a nice dress ski vest. You don't need to wear the normal skeetified vest that you see on a clay shoot. There's plenty of other nice attire that will look good on the day and do the job. It's like nice casual clothing that looks smart, but is very applicable for getting your hands in your pocket quickly.
Yeah. Do you wear your breeks?
No, never wear my breeks. Just, as I say, very casual clothing. We do wear ski vests, but my ski vest on the sim days are very casual, but very smart, like a normal tan ski vest. Nothing written on them at all. No badges, no nothing. Just a dressy type ski vest. And that does suffice if you're loading for yourself.
I think you've picked out the most important bit of clothing that needs discussing. You're right, because I think a skeet vest with all the logos and everything on it, and a big mesh back and all the rest of it. I just feel like it's the wrong look for a.
It is. It is.
Because the idea of a simulated game day is you're simulating a game day. So
Exactly.
One could argue that, well, therefore you should probably rock up in your breeks and your socks and everything. But the idea of doing that in May when it's like 25 degrees or whatever is a very good reason not to.
I've got a solution for that, though.
Oh, go on.
Aladdin trousers. Nice, lightweight, cotton. They look amazing. Think how good it would be. You can have some nice purple ones or something.
You want some curly pumps on as well.
Yeah, exactly. Flip flops.
I don't think we'd be wearing breeks without the tradition behind it. So I don't think you can just launch us wearing silly clothing without a tradition to hang on to.
Well, it's nice. It's nice to see breeks on the day, and a lot of sim days that I go to, they're on traditional shooting estates anyway, and most of you get half a dozen of the teams will be local keepers that's made a team up, and they always come dressed, which is nice to see, dressed in the keepering suits, all very smart, and the traditional gun who shoots on the estates. He maybe comes like I've just explained with a nice dressy ski vest, no badges, no nothing, a nice tan ski vest, white trousers, bit how can I say, like a cricket sort of dress wear really.
So a pair of chinos or something. Jeans acceptable?
Jeans, I see a lot of jeans on the job, yeah, but for me, the top part is the most important part. The ski vest has got to be a dressy ski vest. Most of the time, you sat down having a meal as well, so it's nice to sit down and be a bit dressy at the same time.
Yeah.
What's your go-to attire, George?
What, for sim days?
Yeah.
Well, so I've only done a few. One of them, they specified they like to have people in breeks. So I wore breeks. And actually, it was kind of not the warmest of spring days, and I was, perfectly comfortable. Did one a few weeks ago in the Cotswolds. It was quite a sunny day, and I was quite glad that I was in my chinos and just a nice shirt. And then, as you know, I've got my silly loader thingy, so pockets full of cartridges aren't an issue for me.
But your silly load thingy doesn't hold enough cartridges for a sim day.
I've learned a lesson, though, which is there's no point in blazing away on a sim day. It's much better to be selective. And so I fired 30 odd cartridges on each drive, and I was very satisfied with that.
Dave, George is only selective because that means he only misses 29, whereas you and I might miss 29 from like 400 cartridges. So.
I can miss just as effectively with fewer cartridges as I can with more.
But you kind of need because you're always in pairs on sim days, really, aren't you? You need your mate standing behind you with a whole slab open. Just not just the boxes, like the actual slab open in his arms.
Well, a sim day is a great day out because most of the time you've got your better half with you as well, and they enjoy the day. They're usually doing the loading if the loaders are allowed, and as I say, there's always a sit down meal later on. So smart, casual, but easy accessible pockets because you've got to get them cartridges in that gun. That's what the key element is, getting the gun stuffed.
So what we're saying here, so that the person who's written in, Bartleby, as George has called him, he's saying, I see people wearing skeet vests and others wearing shuffles. What we're kind of saying is, skeet vest, try and make it a bit smarter. Shuffle, first of all, I'd be thinking you're probably going to get a bit warm. But you can probably do better than that and actually find a nice, as you say, sort of shooting waistcoat that's not like super heavy. That you would wear during the season, a shirt and chinos or jeans if you must, and that's sim day attire. Have we summarised it?
I think that's very, 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 very smart attire for the day.
Just on the loading point though, there are alternatives. If you don't get on with waistcoats or or skeet vests or you're particularly married to your shuffle, you could get one of those little cartridge pouches to wear on your belt or something like that for ease of loading as well, couldn't you?
Or as Dave does, just take your wife and...
Yeah, take a loader.
The trouble is, the wife, she won't go with me anymore. I've hit her on the head a couple of times, and she's... it's all in the excitement. You do sometimes forget that you've got a load that might have dropped a shell, and they bend down to pick the shell up, and you break the gun, and oops.
I find with my gun, I've got really strong ejectors on it, and I keep firing empties into the person's face who's loading for me.
Sounds like a side by side. That
it is.
Not the best gun to have on a sim, Dave. If you're putting a lot of shells through.
No, absolutely, and it's just had its final sim season last year, and I have a new gun coming. I've got myself a Rizzini coming for this year, which would definitely far more appropriate for putting through its paces.
Right, so I think against all the odds, we've given out some good advice 2 episodes in a row, which is unheard of. But, I mean, the best advice was obviously the Aladdin trousers. Chris, have we got an unpopular opinion this week?
We do, George, and it comes from someone that you have called. There's no we about these. Judas. I feel like you're sort of labelling him already. Anyway, he says, "Dear Guns on Pace podcast, absolutely love the show. Brownie points, thank you. I wish to register an unpopular opinion. I caught up on the Farm Shoot episode the other day and absolutely loved it, apart from one thing that alarmed me. I'm usually a big fan of What's That You're Drinking, and have to say, as a whiskey fan and someone who enjoys a good vintage of some hedgerow liqueur, I found in the back of a cupboard, this section of the show usually appeals. I've always found those in the shooting fraternity to have impeccable taste. This was until the last episode. Much to my dismay, in the middle of the winter, George merrily chirped up that he was having a nice real ale straight from the fridge, with no shame whatsoever. Real ale from the fridge, he writes. Surely you're risking turning the traditional British staple into the modern craft beer, removing the opportunity for those from overseas to ridicule us for our love of warm beer. Please, George, I appeal to your better nature. Save real ale, skip the fridge."
I must agree on that, actually.
Well, I was going to say, Dave, I'm absolutely with you too. I didn't spot this at the time, and I'm really glad for our listener Judas here for writing in. This is George. Defend yourself.
Well, I mean, part of me thinks I probably shouldn't, but I'm going to anyway. It wasn't a proper bitter. It was a golden ale. And it was as close to being a lager as it was possible for an ale to get.
So like a Southern man's ale.
Yeah, proper watery stuff. You not like proper, Yorkshire bitter that you can eat with a spoon. So yeah, I mean, okay, I'm sorry, but also not sorry.
The last beer I had out of the freezer, it was some years ago. I don't suck beer anyway, but it was very warm day and I got to have one. It was that cold, my glass eye froze up in socket. It's just not the thing to do, drink a frozen cold beer straight out of the fridge. You've got to marinate a little bit in the sun.
I think this is the world is walking into this problem though, because it kind of used to be lager or bitter, didn't it? And one was cold, one was warm. Now we have everything in between, and the scale is so varied. You don't know what you're doing with it. I find nowadays I go up to the bar and I'm like, "What's that?" And it will say some words on it, and you think, "Oh, I know what that will be." You get it, and it's nothing like you were expecting. So maybe George, you just didn't know. Maybe it was just an honest mistake.
No, it's how I like it.
Well, everyone to his own, Chris.
Right. Okay, so from that personal attack, I don't feel particularly inclined to talk about shooting heroes, but a format is a format, so we're going to plough on regardless. Have we got a shooting hero, Chris?
We do. William has nominated this episode's shooting hero, and like with all of these, I'm sure his story will sound familiar to many people listening. William says, "This is a bit of an unusual shooting hero, possibly an unpopular opinion as well, but my shooting hero is my wife, Sissy. She tolerates my complete obsession with shooting every season. I probably only shoot for up to 10 days a season and then beat on a friend's farm shoot for about 7 days. But I will travel any distance for a day out in the field with whoever will have me, and even better if it involves a post-shoot session in the local pub. We have 2 children. I try to take at least one of them beating, but Sissy is normally left with the other one at the weekend, if not both. I managed to get the whole family out for about 2 days a year, and it's great. The rest of the season, Sissy tolerates wet, muddy kit all over the house, being woken up early when I stumble around the bedroom trying to get my twat pants, as she calls them, breeks to you and me, and then has to deal with bedtime alone with our Tasmanian devils of children. Then there is the hanging of the game on the garden fence for all to see, the freezer full of pheasants, taxidermy around the house, and the late night gun cleaning with a whiskey or two. Overall, she is a complete legend for just putting up with me for the season. She completely supports shooting and understands just why I love it so much, but it's a good job the season isn't any longer. Anyway, I'm pretty sure there are plenty of wags out there that are in the same boat, and I think that the shooting widows of the country need some well-deserved recognition for putting up with their shooting-obsessed other halves. If this does make the pod, this should get me some pretty serious brownie points to get me through another couple of seasons.
Well done, Sissy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well done. And I'm speaking for another 100,000
yeah, I was going to say.
wives and girlfriends that probably put up with the same. Carry on.
But I mean, Sissy's getting away lightly. She's not being brained by her husband, which she's out loading for him, as far as we know.
Yes, exactly.
You're trying to get me into trouble now.
He's definitely angling. Good nomination, William. We won't do too many of the other halves, will we? But they are very important in this scenario.
Yeah, maybe we'd all like to raise another glass to our respective other halves. If you're listening, yes. I think maybe go and give your wife a kiss or your other half and just say thanks very much and I'm sorry.
Yeah, exactly. There's no point sending her a set of garters, is there, George?
Well, they all go out a couple of times a season. I think garters is a good thing.
Yeah, she might.
Can you send one on 29th of May for Christine? It's her birthday, and just send it from me.
Yes.
Yeah,
absolutely. We'll sign it, especially from you.
I always forget to send something, you see. It might just get me out of trouble, that, George.
Well, I mean, so this is the thing, Dave. William and Sissy and Judas, not against my better judgment, Bartleby, and now you, Dave, as well, are fully signed up members of the most noble order of the Garters and will shortly be in receipt of a set of the very exclusive, highly desirable Guns on Pegs podcast shooting sock Garters. Dave, I think we might see our way to sending you a second pair for your other half if you promise to wear your garters in your first video of next season.
That's a deal.
That's good. So
that's a deal.
So what we've actually just agreed to is George is sending Dave's wife's present for her birthday, so Dave doesn't have to, and he'll sign it and everything.
I'll write a very nice card.
I'll do a little voiceover thanking you very much as well, boys.
Oh, good lad.
So make sure they're good garters.
Oh, they are.
Oh, they are. They're garish. Don't you worry.
Right, so if you too would like a set of the most desirable garters in shooting, send us your shooting confessions, quandaries or queries, your unpopular opinions or your shooting heroes to pod@gunsonpegs.com. Now, Dave, on the topic of shooting heroes, I reckon if we went and surveyed, say, 100 people at the Game Fair this year and asked them to name their shooting hero, a pretty good proportion of them would name you. With that must come a certain amount of responsibility. How do you make sure that you're using your platform, as it were, to set a good example to all the thousands of adoring followers that you've built up over the years?
That's very difficult because there's always somebody watching for the slightest mistake. Or, we do come over the films and make sure all the boxes are ticked and everything. I do a bit of cursing. We do a bit of cutting, and half of the films finish up on the floor. If you know.
Yeah.
But I think we try to go for quality rather than anything else. Quality shoots, and people think that I just want to film iBert shoots. That's not the case. I want to show everything about the shooting emporium in Great Britain, from the small farm shoots, which we have done in the past, to the very small 60, 70 bird DIY shoots. I want to show all those shoots because they're all part of the mishmash of the shooting world. It's not just about the big corporate shoots. It's about shooting in general, from the sat in a trench with a wildfowl waiting to shoot a goose or a mallard, down to going on a little 20 bird shoot, hoping to get a couple of snipe or a woodcock or a couple of pheasant. We want to film everything. We want to show everybody, especially all around the world, that this is the finest game shooting the world has ever seen is Great Britain. We've got some of the most beautiful shoots in the world, and it's thanks to the countryman and countrywoman and the shooting fraternity that we've got such a landscape that we've got after 300 or 400 years that's been shaped by people like the gamekeeper, the shoot managers, the farmer. It's brilliant, and we've got to show everything.
Do you find that when you're looking, because I was looking at some of your videos, obviously I've seen loads of them over the years, but I was sort of just trying to see the sort of variation that you put up. And we kind of struggle with this as well. People who sort of want to watch the videos and stuff like that are usually wanting often more of the same thing. So do you find that if you're putting out the small little farm days with a little bit less action in, that they don't get as many views, and therefore you kind of end up feeling like you want to show them more of what the user wants? I don't know. Do you see that at all?
I think there's two sides to the following that I've got. I think I've got a following that wants to stand behind my gun and see what I see, because they want to actually shoot at the same birds that I'm shooting at.
Yeah.
And obviously they want to learn how to kill the birds. And you've got the other side then, who actually like the vista, the actual shoot itself, the panorama. They'll have to see the part where the dogs are working, and me interviewing people like the beaters, the pickers up, and not really interested in the shooting, but interested in the film as a whole, showing our beautiful countryside. So you've got two aspects, and I think probably 75% is people wanting to get back at me and watch what I'm doing with a gun. That is probably a big following.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a massive following in America now. I mean, I get letters and emails from America every single day, inviting me to go over there. I've been invited to go over and do a program over there, but obviously I won't be going there with the knee as it is at the moment. In fact, I've been invited to go to New Zealand and do a film there. But
Gosh.
I don't think I might, touch wood, I might be fit enough to get there at end of June. I don't know. But I get invited to go all over the world now.
I've seen the comments. I've seen the comments underneath your videos. Like, there's a lot of comments from all over the world. People
want to see our beautiful countryside, but also it's not just us. There's some fantastic, beautiful places in America. I went to I did a film in Morocco, of all places, in the Atlas Mountains, and it was absolutely thrilling just to do 2 or 3 drives of driven Barbary partridge, totally different from our partridge, really thumpy little things, and then to do two wild driven. And where you hadn't really got time to think about anything. You were stood on a precipice sort of thing, and there were little darts flying all over the place. And I think people want to see every little bit of aspect of the shooting world. And I did me and Rachel did the one walk in the fields with the pointers. I thought that was fantastic. Every little part of shooting, gets my stomach turning, sort of thing, and I want to see everything. I'm not frightened of being laid on a tarpaulin in middle of a swamp. Me laid on my back, looking at trying to shoot a goose. I'd do it. I just want to show everything: what turns, what makes shooters and what makes people tick, in the countryside.
That sounds good. So just winding back a bit then, because obviously this is kind of all the now. I want to go back to, because you said earlier you started shooting late, and I think you says on your website you were.
I was nearly 40 when I started. I started too later, but I did okay in competition. Within 2 or 3 years, I was shooting for Great Britain. So I think people have got some sort of natural ability. I think you'll see a lot of top lads. If I can put that into categories, you'll see a lot of top lads. Let's say the 20 top lads in the world today, right? I can safely say 15 of those lads have come from money. They'll have plenty of time, plenty of money, and I've no need to worry about about what they've got to do. They can go out shooting when they want.
Same as racing drivers,
and they've got youth on the side as well. Yeah, it's racing drivers, and you've got that, but you've got that other 5 out of that 20, or like Mark Windsor's, Sean Bramley's, Digweed's, and John Lees, who are just natural shots. Nick Hendrick, and really good shots. Who's brought up on a bit of pigeon shooting. They've got the natural ability. And I found that out myself.
So did you know then, the first time you picked up a gun and went out on a clay shoot, did you know you were going to be pretty handy at this?
Well, how I started, it's a funny story, really. I mean, I sold a chap. I hadn't known him 2 or 3 months or so. I didn't even know he shot. And I sold him a Merc van. I bought a load of vans out of one of the breweries, and he bought this Merc van off me. And when he came to pick it up, he came with his driver. His driver took the van, and he stayed, just stayed chatting away there. And this was a Wednesday afternoon. He said, do you fancy coming for a shot, Dave? I said, what? Shot at what? Clays. I said, what's them? Clay pigeons. He said, shooting club. I said, no, I don't know. I've never been. Never heard of it, you see. We come from a mining background. We didn't know what a clay pigeon was or anything. I mean, farmers would do then in them days, but we never knew. We never knew what a clay pigeon looked like. We never heard of a clay pigeon. Anyway, he said, have you got a gun? Well, I got an old duck buster under the bed there. No license or nothing then. I'm going back years now, 20-odd years ago, 30-odd years ago. I got an old side-by-side, an old Spanish gun, but I kept there for burglars, you see. Anyway, I said, yeah. Anyway, I fetched this old duck buster out, and I went to, it was the first shot I ever had, were at North of England Target Centre, and they used to go every Wednesday and do what they call, well, I know, a DTL now. And I was stood there with this old 28-inch side-by-side, this Spanish thing, and with a pocket full of cartridges, in a pair of tracky bottoms. My tracky bottom nearly down to my knees, but I got that much weight of cartridge in pockets. But that's all I had. I had no cartridge bag, no nothing, no vest, no nothing. And I shot an 18 out at 25 with this oak side by side, but before it seized up. It wasn't open or closed, and it just seized up altogether. It didn't ever shot so many cartridges, you see. Anyway, and when I took 5 people, I beat 4 of them with this 18. So I said, it's not bad, this. Anyway, the lad, he says, you're not a bad shot, Dave. And he said, yeah. I said, this gun's no good. And I said, I bloody broke it. I said, it won't open the shut. Oh, he said, you don't want one of them things. He said, you can borrow my Miracle. He said, my lad's packed in shooting. He says, if you want to come, I'll fetch his gun for you. The old 3800 Miracles. And I used to beat him from day one. As it was a 32-inch 3800, and I shot after the month of shooting. I shot 100. Well, he'll tell you, he'll verify because he was scoring for. I shot 150 straight at ball trap after 1 month. So I thought, well, I must have a bit of natural ability.
Cool. Crikey!
I shot 150 straight before I missed one at ball trap with this gun. Anyway, I got the bug proper then.
So then within 2 years, you're competing internationally.
Well, it was 12 months. I got in double A straight away with Skeet and DTL because I didn't know sporting existed then because I sort of never had time. I was still bringing a family up and still trying to get a living, still running a big a business. So I never had time other than I just made that Wednesday afternoon. But after a year, I can remember being at North of England, and then it put a 50 bird sporting on. And I heard all these names then who were like folk heroes then, Tony Booth, who actually won the English Open. Martin Doughty was a very good friend of mine. Tony Booth was a very good friend of mine. And I heard all these names mentioned, and these were like bloody heroes to me then, and these lads have been shooting, they've got 15 years on me then. And that was the first sporting that I shot, and I shot out of the 50, I think I shot a 34. And they said, well, that's brilliant, that, Dave, for the first time you ever shot it. And that, it was a challenge. And I saw sporting, then later on fitness, as a real challenge, and that's where I always look for that challenge. And it's obviously that turned over into my game shooting then. I only ever shot a couple of mediocre game shoots, and I never went on anything like that again. I just stuck to decent shoots and looking for better and better shoots.
Yeah, interesting. And so then, how did the YouTube channel come about then? What was the genesis of that?
It was a chap that actually was just Jonathan McGee, nice lad, Jonathan, and he was a good photographer. He still is a good photographer, good filmmaker, and he actually asked me if he could come on a shoot with me. And I think the first shoot was, Duncan Park. And he said, I can't get into any of these shoots to film, they won't let us in. And nobody will let you film then, you see. You'd take a few photographs, but nobody ever turned up with a movie camera. And I said, come with me. I said, and I turned up at Duncan Park and just started filming from day one. And the owner of Duncan Park, not the owner, the factor that took us out, what are you doing, filming? I said, why? What's the matter? I said, it's about time we showed our beautiful countryside and, how much the shooting fraternity puts into it and all the good things they do instead of getting, hauled over the coals for all the bad things that they supposedly do. I said, about time to show the good parts of it. And, I'm not very keen on that. I said, look, it's cost me £2,500 to be here. I said, and he's going to film me. It's as simple as that. Whether you like it or not, as I pay my money. And that was it. I just brought the gates open. And when I did the film, they actually loved it, and then I did 2 or 3 more. Then people started opening the gates, then you see, and then contacting me, and the first great film, of course, were Whitfield, fantastic Ivert shoot, and then the Let Widdigarth shoot when Martin first got the shoot. He asked me to go and film that, and I found a bit of form that day. We don't hit everything.
I was going to ask Dave because I've been watching your videos for a long time, like Chris, and I know it's the editing, but it looks like you don't miss very often.
Well, I put it this way: people say, a 50-yard bird. A 50-yard bird is a good bird. It is a good bird, but I could kill 50-yard birds. I would kill 90 out of 100 of those. 50-yard birds, it doesn't mean anything to me. But I'll put it like this: a 50-yard bird, I'll look to be killing between 80 and 90% of. 55 to 60-yard bird, I'll be looking to kill 50 to 60% of them. Now then, when you go to a 60 to 70-yard bird, I'll be looking to kill 25% of them. So that puts it in perspective.
So how do you, because obviously if we talk about the average game shot, past 40 yards, and we're talking like a good 5-6 to 1 for the average game shot, right? Would you say that's fair?
It's fair because, I see a lot of people. Let's put it in another perspective. When I did the Let Weddigarth film, right? the people always the best to speak to is the loaders, of course, because they're loading, they're watching all the time. You see, they always like to load, but they also like to watch up my shoulder as well to see what I'm doing. And I was on one of the drives on the jet run. I was number one gun, right? So I got everything. Everybody was a back gun to me, right? And there's some tremendous birds, and I like birds that's, what I call, if they're too thin, I won't put gun on them. If I see what I call a bit of fat on them, I'm seeing the best part of the body. Once a pheasant goes sideways and looks very narrow and very thin, he's a very hard bird to put shot on, because when he goes thin, you've got to get through his wings, then into his body, right? So I always look for a bird that's showing his fat, and I'm looking to shoot that bird from his beak down to his stomach, down to the middle of him, right? But soon as a pheasant goes edge on, screaming downhill, edge on, he's the most difficult bird that you'll put shot on, if you can put shot on him, because he's got so many things to get through to get to them vital organs. You're always better off under that belly all the time, because you're going to penetrate something that's going to kill him. And I'll pick through birds all the time, and if they look big enough in the sky to me, that is a fair target to me. And he might be 50 yard, he might be 70 yard, but I know I'm going to kill him. I know I've got a chance of killing him.
So let's assume you're shooting a lot better averages at those types of birds than others. I suppose the question I wanted to ask is, because like I have my on days and my off days like everyone else, but when I'm missing a lot and I mean pricking is just the worst thing in the world. I'd rather not put the gun up. Obviously, you need higher birds to challenge your sort of the sporting nature of a shoot than others. But you can't just show different heights of birds to different guns on the day. So at what point does it come where the birds are good for you, but not for others, and others shouldn't be shooting them? How do we control that? And when is high too high? You must have thought about this.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, and people hear all kinds of stories. Killing birds at 100 yards, and there's a lot of good shots in this country, or very, very good game shots. Just as good a game shot as what I am. I mean, I show it on film, and I've got a fair amount of what I call natural instinct. When I can look at a bird and I think I can lay a shot on him and kill him, and that's when I make my decision, right? But looking at other people. So a lot of people haven't got the skill at all. If they're shooting 60 out of 100 on clay pigeons, they're going to be 8 and 9, 10 to 1 on a 50 yard pheasant. Because for me, if they're only shooting 60 out of 100 on a clay pigeon, they haven't got the means to judge speed, angle, and the distance. And you've got to have all them. That sort of skill to be able to judge speed, especially speed and distance. It's got to be in your mind, in your mindset. That is within range of me, and you can kill a partridge a lot further than you can kill a pheasant. I shot at Drumrangie one day. If you watch the Drumrangie film, the first one I did, and Rav will tell you that. I was shooting over an edge. I was back gunning, and I was shooting. There were birds. He said, "You'll not get a lot of birds at first, Dave," he said, "but they'll come right at the back of that edge." And we put the what they call it, the rangefinder. It was 70 yard away edge. So when you see a partridge well up in the air, 30 or 40 yard away, it's quite killable if it's over your head. But when it's 30 or 40 yard up and 70 yard away, it's a fairly small target, but a partridge is still killable. But I didn't know whether these partridges were in front of the edge or beyond it. You couldn't tell, if you know what I mean, because they were 30 yard or 40 yard up in the air as well. Anyway, I shot 10 of these birds, confirmed kills, out of about 40 shots. But you could only see one on the camera, if you know what I mean. The camera only picked one of the birds up, but I did shoot 10. And when we went to pick these birds up, because I told her, I said, leave the birds where they are. I said, we just want to see how far they are away. And 3 of these birds were 5 or 6, 7 yards beyond the edge. So they were like 70 odd yards away, and all stone dead, killed properly, but I was using 42 gram 3s and 4s.
Crikey.
And 5s. And people say, well, that's another qualm that they have. Why do you want to use a big pellet? But I'm not shooting at stuff what they shoot at. I could shoot 28 gram 5s, but I pick my bird I'm going to kill with a 28 gram 5, which would be a 30-yard pheasant or a 30-yard partridge.
I'm surprised you didn't need a shoulder replacement as well as a knee replacement after.
No, we're going back to the question of why do we some shots are capable of doing it because they get geared up for it. We're using 8-9 pound guns, MK38s, or in my case the new 3800s and the new Browning Crown, fantastic guns, but they are made for that purpose, for long range shooting, as far as I'm concerned. And let's not call it long range shooting. Let's call it shooting in your ability instead of calling it long range shooting.
So just on that point, Dave, I must ask you, because obviously we're going through a period of change at the moment with cartridges. What are you going to be using, and sort of how are you navigating that change, and what are your thoughts on it?
Well, Water Pride is the first estate to go totally steel this year. So
yeah.
Paul James of Game Boy, I'm in constant contact with Paul. Of course, I'm ambassador for Game Boy, and do a lot of testing for Game Boy. And most of the times, they won't put anything out in the field unless I've tested it, and George or Simon Ward. But we actually put it on live quarry before we give it the thumbs up anyway, and at distance. And I've no doubt that Game Boy and the other cartridge companies have got to come up with better products, especially in steel. And I've no doubt, no shadow of a doubt, that Game Boy will have the right material for me this season. They've been at it for 3 or 4 years now with steel. They knew this day was coming, so they haven't sat on the bloody hands. They've got out there. I've already been practicing with stuff. Not in the field at the moment. I did try some steel last year, and it wants tweaking up a little bit. But I can tell you, if we can use the same material that they can use in America, we can use it. If we're allowed to use the same pressures, that's down to CIP regulations. Then I've got no problem in shooting steel because it will kill.
The problem is we're not going to get those CIP regulations changed before we need to transition. So the product that Game Boy Dark Storm steel cartridge I've used a lot of, and it's really good. And
it is
on most shoots in the UK, you wouldn't even notice. But the problem is, on some of the stuff you've just been talking about, you will notice.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Does that mean we're going to have to change, do you reckon?
Well, I will be shooting on the high stuff, and I won't shoot it unless I can kill it, and I will not shoot any cartridge unless I've got confidence that it will kill that quarry. But I will be using something like a 36 gram 201 on pheasant.
On the steel.
And steel. And maybe a 34 gram 5 or 4 on partridge. And a 32 gram 4 and 5 will kill a very good partridge because I've already killed some with them.
And Dave, if you had to bring your sort of maximum range down by 10 yards because of the cartridge, would you feel that is a loss to you, assuming that, because in many regards the challenge is the same, right? It's just operating at the outer limit of what the cartridges can do. So would you feel that that's a loss, or would you be perfectly happy just, going, okay, well, the furthest one away I can shoot is now 60 yards rather than 70?
I'm perfectly happy to shoot within my limitations and the cartridge limitations. And it's like when I did my first 410 film. It's like for like, you think, well, I criticised 410 shooting. I thought, well, why are they using 410 cartridges, 410 guns on live quarry? They're not appropriate. And I think the worst thing ever to learn a kid on anyway. That a 410 for me is an expert shots gun, really, who can really shoot. And when I first tried 410, I got some old cartridges and they didn't look very good on pattern plate. But then when I looked at the home loading scenario, a lot of the lads that use them load their own cartridges, or they have a specific factory load that they favour. And when I started to get more into it, I went and researched it, and then went and did a film. But I went with a 410 team who advised me what to use, and I went absolutely to kill something, and and not to cripple something.
Yeah.
I wouldn't go thinking that I don't want to wound anything. I want to kill it. It's only right to give it the coup de grace while it's flying.
You mentioned kids there, and it was something that I wanted to ask you about. Is your film recently very well titled, I thought, Kids on Pegs? Can you tell us a bit about how that all came about and what your plans are with it?
Kids on Pegs, really, I'm surprised you didn't take this up anyway, bloody guns on pegs. And it's something we can talk about later, really. But it's just a shame that we don't see many youngsters coming into shooting now. And it's just the same in game shooting as it is in clay shooting, obviously. I know there's a money aspect to it, but there's nobody encouraging kids today to look at the outdoors and to get involved with the countryside. We've gone drastically wrong 30 or 40 years ago when our governing bodies for me have let us down very, very poorly, because they should have maintained a presence, choose at what cost, in the local schools. Well, every school really. They should have made sure that the countryside pastimes had some sort of representation over the last 40 years. And when we were kids, and probably when you were a kid as well, as soon as you come home from school, you were out playing, bird nesting, out with a catapult, making a bow and arrow or something like that. We used to chase one another out, bloody things with bow and arrows, trying to kill one another, catapult. Well, there were millions of starlings then. We'd be out trying to kill a starling, or we'd sit there on sandbanks with bloody catapults trying to kill a sand martin or something. We're always up to mischief, but learning about the countryside. If you were out in the countryside all day, by the time you got to 12 or 13-year-old, you were a young countryman. You knew every bird song, you knew every bird where it nested, every bird's egg. At that time, most of the lads collected eggs and one thing or other. All that's gone.
Obviously, times have changed a lot, and the situation has changed, and eating habits have changed, and all sorts of stuff. And I don't know about the organisations not doing enough in that sense. I think that they do quite a lot to get young people in shooting. I mean, Basque have had it as a major, pillar of what they do for forever, it seems. But I just think that their job is becoming harder because of the way the world is.
They've let it become harder. That's the problem. Going back, it's all retrospectively now, because we've got to go back 30 or 40 years ago when the rot set in. When I was a kid, in my teens, you could still see people walking up and down the street with a gun over the shoulder, Saturday mornings going shooting out of the bag altogether, I mean, if God forbid anybody did that today, walked up the high street with a gun over the shoulder, obviously the feet had never touched the floor, that. But it's what's acceptable now, and there's a lot of things that's not acceptable, and shooting's becoming not acceptable because we've never kept it going in the schools. We've never sort of learnt kids that it's part of the countryside.
Yeah,
You've no
but
need to go into a school and talk about shooting. Talk about everything else. Going out with a ferret and like we used to when we were kids. Taking a ferret out and ferreting. Everybody had a ferret when we were a kid. Going out air coursing and stuff like that, or bird nesting. You've not to talk about killing things. That comes later on. You've got to learn them about the countryside, and then that becomes acceptable. What goes off in the countryside.
I do think that this is an interesting period of change we're going through, because at the moment there's a lot of ridiculous situations which I have a feeling might not be quite the way they are in a few years' time, and I do think that the bit we absolutely have to focus on is eating what we shoot and making sure we got a market for the game and stuff like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because I think, I mean, I taught, when you strike up a conversation with a vegan, and you often find with a lot of vegans, I find that they are accepting of eating what you shoot, and they don't want to eat meat, and they don't necessarily want other people to eat farmed chicken and all that sort of stuff. But if you want to go out and shoot a deer, shoot pheasant, shoot pigeon, whatever, then crack on. And I think this is where the opportunity comes. So I know what you're saying, and you sound very downbeat about it, but I do think there's a massive amount of opportunity in here.
I'm not downbeat about it. I'm downbeat about the opportunities that we've missed over the years. Because I'm going to say another thing now. Game shooting, especially, has got a very, very fantastic future because of what we do and what yourselves do in promoting it, right? And especially in films. There's more and more people around the world getting more and more interested in coming over to experience what we experience as normal,
For
normal
sure.
shooting. They want to come and do it.
Yeah.
And the one thing that will save shooting, and there's two sides to every story because I do get kicked in the nuts with the little shoots who'll say, well, we can't, the little man who only shoots 80 bird days, we can't afford to go on these shoots no more because all these foreigners are coming over and buying out shooting up. We can't compete with them. What you're doing is wrong and this and that. But I think by promoting it overseas for me, it'll be the saviour of shooting because one thing that this government won't do, they won't turn revenue down. The exchequer won't turn revenue down.
Yeah.
And shooting, when you look at shooting, game shooting especially, clay shooting you do it anywhere. But we've got the most fantastic game shooting arena in the world, and everybody wants to come over. Obviously, there are people with money. That's even better. They all want to come over and spend money over here, experience what we've experienced. And I think that's fantastic. The more people we get interested from abroad, we are then a great export.
Here.
And you don't close export avenues down.
This is absolutely perfect. Shooting in this country is for many people who look in from the outside, who watch your YouTube channel, and we have a lot of listeners in the States and various other places as well. They dream of coming here.
Absolutely dream of it.
So the way we like to round all of our episodes off, Dave, as you know, is to ask our guests to describe their dream shooting weekend, their last ever shooting trip.
Well, just before we go on to that, let me just say one thing when we're going back to what I shoot, right? What I don't want to do, I don't want to encourage people to shoot birds that's out of range, right? There is guns out there that are quite capable of shooting very, very good birds, right? It's a small percentage of the shooting world, but they are capable of doing that. They get tooled up for it. I don't want to encourage people to. I shoot. And when people get on about shooting 100 yards, that's total fallacy. With a camera can make things look, even further and further away. But at the very most, I will shoot 65 to 70 yard, right? But I'm looking for that bird between 50 to 60 yard that's that's what I call a very exciting and killable bird for me. Right now, a bird at 40 to 50 yard is a very exciting and killable bird for an average shot, and it's a bathroom bird, right? So for me, I like to tell everybody to stick within the means and their abilities, and that's what I like to finish on as far as
That's
that's
a very good
concerned.
message.
Yeah, it's a good message. I agree entirely, having seen it all go wrong far too many times. So with that in mind, then you get to pick a weekend for your desert island shooting, a weekend of 60-yard pheasants. I suppose the first question is: are you going to take anyone else with you? Are you just going to stand in the middle and the best shoots you go to? I mean, tell us, Dave, what's it going to look like? What's this desert island shooting trip going to look like?
Well, my desert island show would look like this. Would be my four favourite drives in the world,
Go on.
which would be Angels at Water Priory,
Nice.
the Oaks at Brigands,
Yeah.
and the Crag at Whitfield,
Yeah.
and Springwood at Arden Hornby.
Okay.
These are all fantastic high bird drives.
Yeah.
But all drives with birds for everybody as well. In these drives can be 40 yard to 75 yard birds. So I can take a mixed team with me. And my team would be to do, and my ideal dream would be to do all them four favourite drives in one day with the following guns. Frank Croft, the Water Priory keeper, because he's such a funny lad, is Frank. He's such a really good company on a day. My daughter Rachel and my son Stephen, who's only been shooting 2 or 3 years, but he loves it.
Yeah.
And very good friends like Stuart Parkin, who you've seen in the films, who likes to take piss out of me. He's a great shooting companion, is Stuart. Makes every day. Neil Ramsey, you never know he's here, Neil, but he's a lovely fella. Anthony Whitaker, another scrap friend of mine. It's one bird out of, if he shoots a 100 bird, he manages to pull one down, but it's always a skyscraper. And then never knows how he's done it, but just...
We've all got a friend like that.
Hi.
He's the ideal invite, Chris, because he doesn't hit anything, he puts nothing in the bag, and then you just hear him scream once and he's killed 170 yards and don't know, ain't a clue how he's done it.
Picturing many occasions.
Yeah. And obviously ABC, Alan Carr, who you've seen on the films, who was a very, very funny lad and still a decent shot is Alan. Kev Joblin, of course, who has Gervo shoot. Because I like Kev because he's always sat on the fence and he never falls either side of it. You can never get a straight answer off him as far as shooting concerned. And another lad who's a very funny lad, and I love his company, he's desperate. Alan Dixburn, of course, a.k.a. Alan Dixburn. And that would be a really good team to finish your days on and a really good day out. And if I couldn't have that, I'd be quite happy to have that same company on a lovely simulated game day at one of the big estates like Viva or Water Priory, and just have a fun day, and that'd just be as good without having to kill anything.
I love where you've gone with that, Dave, and there's many similarities between the desert island shootings that come up from our guests, but you've absolutely nailed it at the end there, which is that you're there with your mates, and actually, quite frankly, obviously, if you can do those 4 drives, that would be amazing, of course. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter that much. The greater part was being out with your mates on a day, having a laugh, and the rest of it kind of is just neither here nor there. And that is what is so great about shooting. It offers us those opportunities. And so, yeah, I love the way you rounded that off.
Here.
But don't forget, lads, we have got a fantastic British Isles with some of the most fantastic countryside. And if you see my last film that was done in the Lake District, we have got some wonderful countryside, all tended very carefully by gamekeepers, shoot managers, and estate managers, and obviously attended by guns who love to be there on the day. And it's the most therapeutic thing of all is to be out on a, whether you shoot anything, but what's more therapeutic beside of a babbling brook in Scotland, one of them little burns and waiting for some nice prices coming over, whether you hit one or not.
I couldn't agree more, Dave. Well, it's been fantastic having you on the podcast, Dave. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's been great to be on.
Yeah, cheers, Dave. Thank you very much.
Catch you later.
Right, so before we go, there is one final reminder, as usual, that you can get your hands on a pair of the highly desirable Guns on Pegs podcast shooting stock garters by sending us your shooting dilemmas for us to resolve, or by getting in touch to let us know where you've been listening, or by sending us your unpopular opinions. Just send us an email to pod@gunsonpegs.com, and if we use it in the next episode or any future episodes, we will send you some garters. We will be back very soon, date unspecified, with series 5 of the podcast. Do send us your suggestions for what we should do for our 50th episode. Until then, thanks very much for listening, and goodbye.